past times, past moments, and past mistakes. It's easy to reminisce about things that have happened in our past lives, repeating them over and over again, especially before we sleep, always with the intention of figuring out how we could have altered those moments. And they are memories that are ones we want to forget, the ones where we try and move on from them, but the harder we do try, the more vivid the memory becomes. We look back with hindsight and wonder if we did something different that day, what would our lives be today? And it is that thought that brings those waves of sadness, especially if you are feeling lost in the world, because all you want to do is make sure that you are on the correct path to make your future the best it can be. And you're probably wondering what that has to do with a chubby panda wanting to be the greatest martial arts fighter in all of China. I mention all this because Kung Fu Panda is about our fear of the past and future. Po is a dreamer and wants to one day leave his father's ramen business to pursue his dream of becoming a Kung Fu master. It's a pathway that looks very uncertain, but Po is a plucky dreamer, and when the opportunity arises to see his idols, the world-renowned Famous Five, he tries everything to make sure he gets that opportunity to see them. This persistence to enter the closed stadium fires him into the path of Master Oogway, who inadvertently chooses Po as the next Dragon Warrior. And just like that, Po's dream is becoming a reality. But that seems to be a bit too easy, right? Surely he goes through a great hardship to achieve his goals. Well, not really. Some failed attempts by Master Shifu to make Po quit, and a few uncalled for harsh words from the Famous Five.
You're a disgrace to Kung Fu, and if you have any respect for who we are and what we do, you will be gone by morning.
But Po stays and doesn't get too discouraged, and eventually he becomes the greatest martial artist we have ever seen. It's a noble story about never giving up and pursuing your dreams, but that story didn't really resonate as powerfully as I wanted it to. I didn't feel as strongly towards it. Maybe because it is very basic in its telling that I couldn't find any other way to explain myself without rehashing the story. However, as I began to let the movie marinate in my mind and let scenes play out, I realised that Po is not the most interesting character in the film. His story is pretty rudimentary, and so the character that had the most interesting story was that of Master Shifu. Shifu despised Po. This uncoordinated panda was meant to be the one that saves the town from the rampant rage of Tao Long. He even goes to the point of demanding that Master Oogway rethink his decision in choosing the panda.
Master, that panda is not the Dragon Warrior. He wasn't even meant to be here. It was an accident.
This great teacher was seemingly found bitter and resentful to a student who has been chosen to be taught under his tutelage.
But when I'm through with you, I promise you, you're going to wish he hadn't. Are we clear?
And begins to actively set Po up for failure rather than guide him to success. And for me, that was a much more interesting character story. What drove Master Shifu to emotionally resent Po? Well, the answer became his fear of the past and the uncertainty of the future. Tao Long, the antagonist of the film, breaks out of prison in order to seek revenge on his master that he felt abandoned him when he was at his lowest. It is that connection Tao Long and Shifu share that is the driving force into the master's regression as a teacher and his fear of the future. Shifu, out of panic that Master Oogway's premonitions that Tao Long will escape prison, sets him in a spiral and demands that the prison has even more security.
Fly to Chalcombe prison and tell them to double the guards, double the weapons, double everything. Tai Lung does not leave that prison.
That worry he has is not because he is scared of Tao Long, but instead this is Shifu making sure he never has to confront his failures of the past. He trained Tao Long from a baby and fed him the praise and glory that one day he will be the next Dragon Warrior.
You told him he was destined for greatness.
And when Master Oogway rejected that idea, Shifu turned his back on the student he raised from a child.
What did you do? Nothing.
And rightfully, Tao Long was angry by that. He essentially saw a parental figure in his life reject his life's work of years of extensive training. It is unfair to be claiming Tao Lung as the villain because all he ever wanted was to fulfill his destiny that was forced on him by Shifu. So Shifu, the great trainer, instead of comforting someone that has lost his future pathway, locks him away to never be seen again. Shifu is avoiding that past because he cannot accept his failure as a mentor, and because of that he became very cold to his new disciples, making sure there are no emotions in his teachings. Master Oogway mentions that when we try our hardest to avoid what we fear, that fear will eventually turn up.
One often meets his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it.
Shifu is afraid of his past mistakes and fears what that future looks like if it ever catches up with him. And that's a story that is more personal. We all fear our past mistakes and are so determined about making sure our future is secure that we essentially forget about the present. Shifu no longer has enjoyment in the now. He was constantly making sure that his future was defined so that he may never confront his past in Tao Lung. The famous 5 was his way of protecting that future, but just like anything in life, a disruptor will appear and that safe pathway is no longer there. Po became that disruptor which allowed Shifu to no longer think about the past or the future, but instead focus on the present. Focus on giving Po the best training he can and essentially allowing himself to live in the now. Because once you do that, then the future will sort itself out. The past will always be there. It is something we cannot change, and even though we all want it to, and we all relive moments we desperately want to forget, it is forever there. And to keep fearing that past means we no longer see the beauty in the now. Shifu is a representation of that. And I see that in me as well, past moments that I wish to forget and ones that I fear to confront. And because of that, I try my hardest to make sure that my future will be in a better position than it was in the past. To make sure I do not repeat those mistakes again, and that is a normal attitude to have because no one wants to step into an unknown future. But there is caution in planning that far ahead because all we are doing is stagnating the now. And instead of making sure we're happy today, we're planning to be happy in the distant future. It is like when you aim for a better life by self-development, new job or anything else, and by aiming for that, you hope the work you put in now will eventually plan out for your future self. And that's a good way of living. But it can lead you down a road of never being satisfied in the now. A few years may go by and still you are planning for your future self again. And this continues where you are then left wondering where all that time has gone because instead of living in the now and being happy today, you were planning on being happy later in life, leaving you to never be content in the present. A personal example of this is how I constantly thought I'll be happier when I change jobs, or I'll be happier when I get more views on YouTube, but that happiness never appears. Because I get to a point and I'm already thinking about how I can get even more views or find another job, and that will make me truly happy. Instead, I should have realised that the now is what's important, which is more healthier than constantly making sure that the future is clear because that will never be the case. We try to run away from the past and we try to make sure our future is set in stone, like our path is defined. However, it is what Master Oogway says to Po that is the core of what Kung Fu Panda means.
Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That is why it is called the present.